What's going on, everybody? This is an episode from the No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling podcast. Do you like podcasts and you want to see the full podcast? Make sure you check out the No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling podcast on all your podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, among many others. But you're listening to the episode right here on YouTube, so make sure you hit that like button and below, and make sure you hit the subscribe button to NC Studios and NC Level Up for all your gaming needs. This is the Nerd Coalition. Enjoy
all right,
the show.
everybody. It's the moment y'all been waiting for. It's the moment y'all been hitting me up in the comment section about. And that is part 2 of the No Gimmicks Needed Wrestling podcast, episode number 298. So, right here, I was going to do something special here because we're going to be talking about the new Netflix documentary, Mr. McMahon.
Yes.
And we have been talking about this during the... we got news about this, and then we got trailers about this, and everything that's been happening. Because first of all, this thing has been a project that has been back since 2020, and they have been delaying it, and because of new things that just been coming out about Vince McMahon. And to the point we thought the thing was even going to be canceled. But it's not. Netflix said, no, we still putting this out. So, right now, what you guys see right now, I'm doing 2 versions of this. Y'all hearing it, obviously, it's going to be our part 2 of our podcast. But I'm also doing video form for YouTube. So if you want the full thoughts in a cut version of the podcast, you're going to have to go straight to the podcast and check that out. But there will be a YouTube version out here. That's why I won't be on video. Also, joining me on this review here is my wife, the greatest Catch Lady Sketch.
Hello.
And also... joining also at what was supposed to be at this time was not downstairs for Prime Time. Unfortunately, I don't know what Prime's at right now, because right now Prime has been dealing with the hurricane that's been going down for. What's the hurricane name?
I think it's Helene.
Helene, yeah. So for those who don't know, just to give a quick reminder, me, Lady Sketch, Quattro, Q Flow, all of us, we in Philly. This is a Philly-based podcast. Nerd Coach is a Philly-based group. Mm-hmm. We all up here. The only one that's not here with us is Primetime, who is down in Florida.
Yeah, he gets the hurricane and we get the snow.
Exactly. So we got rain, but they got the hurricane down there.
It hit bad.
Yeah, he got hit bad down there. So once again, I don't know. Now Prime is okay. He has been contacting me and stuff like that, but I don't know what the situation is, whether if his power's out or if anything if it's have trouble charging the phone to even join the podcast, or if he even had to just leave. I don't know the situation. Mm-hmm. Still trying to figure that out with him. He did say he will try to be able to be part of this right now, but I left the line open. So if Prime Time does come, he'll jump in, but I left the line open for him to do that. But right now, that situation that he's dealing with, so I'm not too worried about that as well. But me and my wife gonna sit here and we gotta talk Mr. McMahon. So Netflix released a 6-part documentary. Now, I'm going to say this here. With all that being said, me as a wrestling fan, I got my Macho Man shirt on right now. Me as a wrestling fan, this rarely offered anything new. Mm-hmm. Because I've seen all this stuff in Dark Sides of the Rings. I've seen all this stuff when I've been researching for podcasts. And just being a wrestling fan. I've been watching wrestling.
We're just being around because...
Exactly. Yeah. This ain't really going to offer you nothing new. There are some things that still had my jaw just like, what? I had that a couple times, but there has not really been anything that's really like new to this. So I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and social media that was saying that this really was not that great because you're probably a wrestling fan.
Because you know what's going on.
Now, for those who are not wrestling fans, those who just like watch wrestling, because it just so happened earlier before I started recording this, I was watching Kev on stage, mm-hmm. and he's like, I watch wrestling, but I'm not like into wrestling fan. It was very informative for him mm-hmm. because he's not a big wrestling fan. And then we got a couple friends that are not wrestling fans at all. I'm like, if they watch this will be a very informative documentary. Because first of all, Bill Sims is a part of this documentary. And yesterday you asked me, do they have anybody from WWE to help them with the wrestling part of it, the rest story?
Know what questions to ask, basically.
They have David Shoemaker.
Okay.
Is really his name.
I believe that.
That was part that did this with Bill Simmons. Now, for those who don't know who Bill Simmons is, if y'all are familiar with ESPN 30 for 30, he is responsible for that. There was also an Andre the Giant documentary that was really, really good. That was on HBO.
30 for 30 is a good documentary series.
Yes. And once again, it was only supposed to be 30 episodes, and it got so popular. Now it's, shit, we in the hundreds, when it comes to episodes. So it's like every month now, or every couple months that we get a new type of documentary, he is responsible for that. So I already knew when I saw that name that I was like, okay, well, we're going to be in for a well-produced documentary, which I can say is the case. Mm-hmm. It's very well done, great edits, great look to it, and we got a lot of talking heads in here. We got Hogan,
of course, Bret
Hart, Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H, the whole McMahon family, which means Shane, Linda, and Steph. We got Tony Atlas, we got Cody Rhodes, we got Booker T. We have a great amount, Trish Stratus. Great amount of talking heads that are in here. There are some that I know people may ask this missing. I can tell you there's some that's not going to be part of this.
That they said, like Alundra Blaze, they asked her, she said no.
Yeah. So there were a lot of talking heads in here. So the way I'm going to format this whole review is I'm going to give a brief, we're going to go episode by episode because there's a lot of things to unpack in there. I'm also going to bring up some things that y'all may not have known or that they did not mention in that episode. And maybe that you may not even know either also that they brought up in the episodes as we're going down the whole thing. Episode 1 titled Junior. Mm-hmm. This is This was actually one of the episodes that I was most excited to see because once again, I already know the history of WWE and the history of wrestling and all that kind of stuff like that. Mostly, so none of the stuff that I knew was going to be new. But we really got into that. It focused on the early days of Vince. Vince grew up in a trailer park, and he in trailer park in North Carolina, and it was with his mom and his stepdad. Vince didn't even know his last name was McMahon until about 12 years old when he actually met his actual dad, Vince McMahon Sr.
And that's the thing. I'm like, so what's his birth name then?
That's a couple things that we didn't get into because it was very like
Let's go see.
He was abused by his stepdad, and just physically and mentally abused by his stepdad. And then when he finally met up with his dad, it was said that him and his dad never talked about why he was missing the first 12 years of his life. Mm-hmm. There was also a Playboy interview that was done years ago that Vince had alluded to in the interview that his mom even sexually assaulted him.
Yes. I do remember that happening because everybody was just like, what? And I saw people saying back when that, like, referring to that. Yeah. That some of the stuff explains a lot. And honestly, it does.
It does. Now, with that being said, at the beginning of the documentary, Vince McMahon tells Bill Simmons that, I wish I could tell you all the stories. But they're just too much that, I'm not going to tell all the stories. And he said, but I'll give you a little to keep you interested. Red flag number 1.
Yeah.
I already said that there are some things I wouldn't, because remember, all these interviews were recorded back in 2021. These weren't just done last year. These was recorded back in 2021. So they make sure at the beginning that they let you know this is what it is.
Okay.
So
I just he had his stepdad's last name. It sounds like.
Okay. And this is also the man that Vince said that he regretted that his stepdad died
before he could kill him. Now listen, okay, Vince McMahon may be a lot of things, but I do not like people who abuse children.
Exactly. So
fuck him. Fuck that man.
Vince is gonna kill him the McMahon way. But so one thing I was not really aware of, that Gorilla Monsoon was the next airline to get the company from.
Same, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Vince McMahon Sr. But Vince McMahon Jr., one day, and honestly, it kind of worked out that way because if Gorilla Monsoon kept it, he would have kept it as the territories.
Definitely would. And we would have ended up in a very different wrestling landscape right now.
Exactly. And once again, I don't even know territories still be around today anyway, but still, that's the way they would have kept it. But Vince Jr. Wanted to make a play with it and made a deal with his dad. Vince Sr. said, okay, well, he would sell his shares to Jr., and if Jr. missed one payment, the control of the business goes back to the shareholders, and you don't have to pay none of the money back. And you didn't have to pay
it back. That's a wild deal.
Yikes. I'm just like, so don't miss shit. So, but then Vince does that, and then he starts going through the tear. Because once again, this is all going through Black Saturday, which is something that we talked about, and people ad nauseum, and people heard about this on Dark Side of the Ring. But he goes through the territory, starts taking up other stars. Vince was looking for a guy to lead this company, but then so at first, Dusty Rhodes was the thought of being that guy. Mm-hmm. Okay, we all know Dusty. Yeah, baby. Got the whole, he got the charisma and everything. He don't have the look or the body for it.
That's. I think that was the issue.
And then, so it was funny because they had Cody Rhodes, and then Cody Rhodes is like, shit, I didn't believe anything my dad was saying until when I got there, and then Vince was in the back. Was like, yeah, that was the plan. So Vern Gagne in AWA had this guy named, I forgot what his original name was, but it ends up being Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I forgot his name too.
Yeah,
because it was something like what?
So he wanted to bring Hogan over. At first, you know, at this time in the early '80s, Hogan was starting. He got an offer for Rocky 3, and then Vince they say he'll be blackballed. Didn't want him to do that. He did Rocky 3 anyway. Still made him a big star. Vince brought him back and said, "Okay, well, we're gonna make this guy the face of the WWF at the time." Mm-hmm. But we can't have him be back because of two-face champion. So this is where, so for those who don't know who wrestling is, this is where the term transitional champion comes from. Where it's like we got to be able to get the championship off somebody and have them transition it to the other person. So,
but you can't have a face go up against a face.
Yeah, or he'll go up against a heel. So what happened was they had the Iron Sheik beat Bob Backlund. Now. They did talk about the thing. They did talk about how the fact that in this time, the foreigners were the evil, and it was American nationalism, American patriotism. Mm-hmm. Because if you're Japanese, German, Russian, Iranian, it didn't matter. If you weren't from a bleach blonde white guy from America, you were the villain.
Yeah, yeah.
And they acknowledged that that's what it was. At that time, they do talk about as they're promoting WrestleMania. They talk about the John Stossel getting slapped by David Schultz.
That was wild, bro. John Stossel, he went. You was asking for it, my man.
You know what? As a wrestling fan, I was just like, I can watch them slaps over and over again. Like, it's slap. He tried to get slapped and get slapped back again. And then they also talk about when David Schultz got choked out. On his show by Hogan, because I was just like,
you mean who?
Oh no, excuse me, not that.
Munch.
I'm sorry, Richard
Belzer.
Richard Belzer. Excuse me, I have it right here. My apologies.
But say don't do much.
Yeah, which in turn I'd be looking like that's just stupid.
That was dumb. That was so dumb.
Now once again, it is dumb on kind of on both hands because Hogan, you gotta be.
You got to be smarter because you know what, and they acknowledged it that everybody was super protective of the business. It didn't like people talking about it like it was fake. So it's like, oh, you want me to put you in a hole? I'm gonna put you in a hole.
Yeah.
But it's like, bruh, you know, like I know, even though the ring ain't soft, it ain't the floor.
So then we go to episode 2. Stand back.
Stand back. Stand back.
This we're going to WrestleMania 2. We got they're like, we're so big, we're gonna try to do 3 different locations from LA, Chicago, and New York. Didn't work out that way, but even in the background, Jesse Ventura was trying to unionize the wrestlers backstage because back then that travel schedule was grueling. You know, he tried to unionize, and then Hogan already missed. He was like, he went and snitched right to McMahon and said, "Hey, Jesse's trying to get the boys together." You know, to or walk out, and and Vince killed that. Now, Vince says
Hogan get on my fucking nerves so bad.
What happened at 2 didn't work, so we gotta find a big, spectacular or attraction to do at WrestleMania 3. So they had what was it, the Silver Dome and the choice of the Superdome because
it's the Superdome.
Because this is the same mistake that Hogan made at WrestleMania 30. So I want to make sure I don't...
Let me not play myself.
Exactly. Well, even while they was doing that, Vince goes and he's like, well, we need a big attraction. He goes pays Andre Giant a visit, who's now doing movies, who's kind of like semi-retired at this point. And he goes and tells him, hey, look, we can put you against Hogan, in front of like 90,000 people, and you can be the heel because at that
it's
time,
the Silver Dome.
Silver Dome.
See, listen, I was about to be all the way wrong too.
Yeah. So, and he told that, look, go get your surgery on your back, and we can go ahead and match at WrestleMania. The match is built on a bunch of giving out. Now, let me tell you right now, it's a beautiful moment. It's a wrestling moment in the staple of everybody's head seeing Hogan slam Andre. I want to tell you this though, like they said, Andre has been slammed.
That happened already
Multiple times, even way more cleaner. Back then, they said Andre never lost. Andre has lost before. And then they go on to that it really wasn't 93,000 people, or Hogan's at 93,001.
He had the 173. I said, all right, because like, do the lies just live in the back of your mouth? I can't.
They in the back like, we ready to go when you call us, boss.
I'm convinced Hogan goes to Sam's Club and gets a box of Audacity and lies just in bulk. Because he just be talking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's so, and then so now the popularity of Hulkamania is running wild. No pun intended. Now Hogan wants to get back into Hollywood, and him and Vince do a movie of No Holds Barred.
Oh my God, that movie! Look, I don't know if we have any Office fans listening to this, but No Holds Barred is like the OG threat level Midnight.
What's that smell?
Now the serious shits are here because they got Dr. George Zahorian, who was there, who was appointed by the Pennsylvania State Athletics Commission to cover WWE shows. And he was prescribed steroids and other drugs to the talent that was in there.
That's crazy.
Like, even during the shows, after the shows, Bret Hart would say there would be a whole line outside his office door because the boys had to get their candy. Because Hogan goes on Arsenio, lies like a motherfucker on Arsenio.
Yes, because why? They told him not. Now listen, that's the one time I'm going to have to agree, and far be it from me to ever state a statement, I'm going to have to agree with Vince McMahon. Yeah. I told you to just tell the truth.
No, bro.
If Vince McMahon as the CEO and chairman can be like, I was using the roids, you can go on there and say you was using the roids. He said Vince thought it was a bad idea. Because it was. Because he knew you was going to get up there and pop one of them lies out the back of your throat and be like, yeah, no, steroids, never heard of them. And just for people to come out and be like, I used to shoot up Hulk Hogan myself. What?
And then, which pops up Phil Mushnick, which they don't like at all.
That man hates Vince McMahon. Like, I think, like, with the passion of 1,000 burning suns, hates Vince McMahon.
And it was only comments that were sitting there trying to write about all the stuff that was going on in wrestling. Because right there, people understand, wrestling back then was not what it is today.
It was still super taboo.
Yeah, it was the freak show. Mm-hmm. It was the circus freak show. It wasn't nothing of importance of the NFL, NBA, MLB, or NHL. It was none of that. But he would sit there and try to bring issues to light. But they did not skip over the Ring Boy scandal.
I did not know about this.
Yes, I was.
That's the one thing in this documentary that I saw that I was like, oh, I had no idea this happened.
So there was a man by the name of Mel Phillips who was the head of the ring crew and the ring announcer. For those who don't know, in wrestling back then they had kids, young kids. Like, when I say young kids, I'm talking like 13,
kind of
14,
like you have
15.
bat boys and things like that.
That will help set up the ring and stuff like that. Well, Bret Hart, who don't pull no punches at all, was just like, Mel Phillips was a straight up pedophile.
He definitely did. Whack. He was just like, that man was a pedophile. And he was abusing them boys. Exactly. And they knew. I said, well, Jesus Christ, Bret Hart.
Don't mince
He don't give a fuck.
At all. And so Vince had fired him and made a statement that he had an unnatural relationship with children or kids.
Oh, I missed that quote.
Yeah, but then brings him back as long as he stays away from the kids.
Oh, I missed this. I must have been falling asleep at this part.
So then he goes on Phil Donahue's show.
That was wild. That was another dumb idea.
Yeah, where they was tearing his ass up because it did not pass the smell test because when I say don't pass the smell test, as if like you knew not what was going on. back then.
Yeah. Oh, I had no idea. It was unclear. But you brought him back under the stipulation that he stay away from minors?
Exactly.
What?
Tony Adams has also said, because when he also said, yes, we abused women back then.
Oh, he was very open about that. He was like, we was treating them like objects for real. They was just...
Which led it to the Rita Chatterton thing.
She was the first female ref, right?
First female ref, and she was the one. She had accused Vince McMahon of raping her in a limousine in 1986. And
this is where I knew I was getting off the train. Like, I already knew. I was like, I am not going to be on Vince McMahon's side at all in this documentary. But this is where I was just like, this is the first stop. You got to let me off here.
We about to get there because this is what.
I'm sorry. The ring boy thing is the first stop. Yeah. This is
strike two. I knew a little bit about Rita, but it's what. Let me explain what happened. So, she does tell Andre the Giant and Mel Marcioni. I forgot. There's two wrestlers in the back that she did tell after this thing happened, but didn't tell anybody else. She didn't come out to it until about 1992, about 5 years later. And it tells the story. Reason being is because she waited for her parents to pass away, so that
they didn't have to deal with the embarrassment,
or knowing, or even make them even more sick,
or harassment,
all that kind of stuff. So, which is very sad. And she said she was forced to have oral sex with him, and if she wanted a $500,000 contract, she would have to please him. And now,
I'm disgusted.
Vince denies this back in the day, right? When they bring this up, but then in this interview, Bruce Pritchard, once again, this ain't a hit piece. Vince says this shit out his own mouth.
He ties himself up.
Vince McMahon says that the sex that he had with Rita Chatterton was consensual. This is what he said, because before he denied it, now he said it was consensual. But then
he gives us his OJ, if I did it.
It was, I was about to say. But then out his mouth, the stupidity comes through, which is the arrogance, because he got away with so much shit. He says it was consensual. And actually, had it been a rape, the statute of limitations had run out.
Who says that? What? What?
I hit the...
Listen, when I saw that, I was like, I think I need a break.
Episode 3, okay, I'm going to tell you right now, it does focus on a little bit of the steroid trial and how they tried to get Hogan to testify against Vince. But Hogan said, I took the steroids, but I didn't get it from Vince.
And he did a swerve on them prosecutors.
Yeah, but like Bret Hart said, he was saying that Vince never told you to take steroids, but it was like alluded to, like, you know what?
Just like he didn't tell them to slap John Stossel.
Exactly.
But somebody did it.
Exactly. But episode 3 is talking about the Monday Night War, the beginning of it. Now, I don't have to get into the whole Eric Bischoff and Ted Turner and all that kind of stuff like that, and The Rock and Austin, NWO, DX, the curtain call, which I was just like, that's kind of out of place because for a Vince documentary, why I had a curtain call in it. I guess he wanted to talk about it. But in this episode, Vince does, he starts crying victim when it comes to Ted Turner, who was stealing all his...
Oh my God.
He's stealing all his top guys. And he's just like, you know what? Ted was looking to hurt the competition. I was looking to compete.
We're a small family-owned business. Bro, small family-owned business, these nuts. Because what are you talking about?
If you ever want to get Eric Bischoff and Dave Meltzer to agree on anything, that was the thing right there. Because he was like, you know what? He did the same thing to the territories. Let me just list some of the things Vince McMahon did back in the day, which people would look like, Vince... Starrcade was a big thing in the NWA for Jim Crockett Promotions, right? Mm-hmm. That was their WrestleMania type thing. What does Vince do? He creates a program called Survivor Series. Mm-hmm. At that time, because it was a Thanksgiving thing, to go right ahead, hit the Starrcade, and threaten the cable company that if anybody carried Starrcade, they would not let them show WrestleMania 4. Hurt them? So who's trying to hurt who? That's just a snippet. Things,
but I'll give him this. They held him accountable. They held his feet to the fire. Yeah. So how is that any different from what Ted Turner was doing? And what does this man say? Well, sometimes I don't say how I really feel. What?
But it's our fault for not believing what he's saying. Now, towards the end of that, they go into the Montreal Screwjob. Everybody saw that to death, right? And about how, for wrestling fans, how they screwed Bret Hart. We have talked about the Montreal Screwjob on this podcast before you go back and listen to all the old episodes. But let me tell you what they did not mention in this episode. Because I'm just sitting there thinking, like, I am glad that my wife does do the podcast with me and she's more educated. But for somebody who doesn't educate, it just looks like Bret Hart is being a dick, right? That he doesn't even want to lose a championship and he didn't want to go out that way. Here's the case. Bret Hart was willing to put anybody over in Madison Square Garden, including the Brooklyn Brawler.
Except one person.
But the whole thing was Bret Hart did not want to lose to Shawn Michaels in Canada. He said the next day when they're in Madison Square Garden, he'll lose the belt to he'll lose to Steve Austin. He lose to the Brooklyn Brawler. The reason why he said to Shawn Michaels is because Shawn told Bret Hart months ago that he would not be willing to do the same for Bret when it comes to passing over the torch. And the reason Bret Hart lost at WrestleMania 12 when they had that Iron Man match is because Shawn he put Shawn over and Shawn let him get his win back, but then Shawn, I lost my smile, had the knee injury and did not want to sit there and put Bret Hart back over.
I lost my smile. It's hilarious.
And Bret Hart ended up going against Undertaker. Was it Undertaker at SummerSlam '97, something like that? And Shawn never put Bret back over.
But he didn't even go into that. He just gave a very broad. Shawn was a dick, and Shawn agreed.
He was like,
he was like, I was
a prick.
I was horrible.
Like I was a prick to the point. I was just like, whatever Vince said, I felt as though I owed it.
I had to do it.
Yeah. Because, and they talked about the screw job. They talked about when, Bret Hart knocked the shot with some man.
He hit that man right in the temple.
Right.
And then they got the footage of him stumbling down the hallway.
With the black eye. Then we go into episode 4. So, the way I have it here for my notes is I have episode 4 and 5 together. Okay. Episode 4 or 5 is we're going straight Attitude Era, right? And the reason why I did it together is because we know all about the Attitude Era.
Yeah, we.
Now, for those who don't know about the Attitude Era,
it was a wild time.
But then we do have to get to the death of Owen Hart, right?
That was wild.
Which we knew we was going to get into. We knew it was going to get kind of glossed over because they had a whole Dark Side of the Ring episode about it. We knew it wasn't going to get too deep because it is about Vince. However, we finally get Vince's reason of why he kept the show going. So Bret Hart he fell to his death doing the Blue Blazer character. And before I get to this, I'm gonna say this one day. As much as I love Bret Hart, and as much as everybody want to say that he speaks his mind, he's invited to the cookout, all them great things, there is one thing about Bret Hart. Bret Hart do be up his ass a little bit too much. Bret Hart takes himself way too seriously sometimes.
Are we talking about how Vince had to try and knock him down a peg and was just like, I was not trying to get back at your brother through you because of you. I don't care. I don't care that much.
Because Bret Hart made a thing that they were burying Owen to get back at Bret. Right? Here's the thing. Owen Hart was doing the Blue Blazer stuff in '99. Mm-hmm. He had a couple like smitteds here in '98, but it's mostly '99. Owen Hart was kind of pushed in the beginning of '98 because he had that championship program with Shawn Michaels. Mm-hmm. Then yes, he did join Nation, but he was a top heel. Mm-hmm. And then so Owen Hart.
That was such a random thing.
It was, but Owen Hart was doing stuff to the point I can't necessarily say being buried. And then Bret Hart comes out his mouth and says, because everybody had, it seemed like every wrestler that I love had a stupid thing come out their mouth, and he was just like, I had a thought that they killed Owen to get back at me.
Did he say that? I thought he said like they buried him, not they killed him.
And he said also,
I missed that part completely.
Bret Hart said that he was trying to look into if this was murder to see if that they killed Owen on purpose to get back at Bret Hart.
Oh, is that what that was about?
Yes.
Maybe it was so much trauma that I forgot. I'm sorry, that was uncalled for.
No, that was actually called for. So Vince says that, okay, listen. We were in dark. For those who don't know wrestling, when you go to a live show, we all been to a live show, there's one on here. Mm-hmm. When there's a commercial or when you're doing a pay-per-view, when they're doing a promo, Everything goes dark in the arena, and on the Titantron, they playing the video, or they're playing the backstage interview. That's what it means to go dark. So everything is dark in the ring. So if you're up in the top area, you really can't see what's really going on because everything is dark.
No.
If you're at the front row like we've been at,
you can see what's happening.
You can see what's happening. It's just dark, but you can see what's happening. Owen Foster's there, so then when lights come back on, some people that are up, and they're like,
they have no idea what's
going on. Why is what happened to Owen in the ring? If you were in the front row, you saw Owen fall. You
saw it, and that was probably
and you was right there. You hurt,
super traumatizing.
Exactly. To the point. So he said, well, since they was in dark and nobody saw what happened, we're gonna keep the show going.
And they can't hear the commentators.
And they can't hear the commentators of what's going on. He said nobody came to see somebody.
JR and King told the audience that was watching what happened.
Yeah.
But the people in the arena have no idea what's going on.
I saw that show live on pay-per-view with my sister because once we did WrestleMania, I missed back. I'm getting over the edge. Because we really wanted to see D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry versus Canada X-Pac. Don't ask me why.
That is hilarious.
Don't ask me why.
I mean, back then, that tracks.
But when that happened, and I was just like, we could not process the fact that Owen Hart just died. And they just told us that. And it was just like, all right, next match, Jeff Jarrett versus Val Venus.
And they was just like, they were like, this is not part of the show.
Yes. And they were pushing them out there. Owen Hart's blood is still in the ring. They showed them with the stain. It's still in the ring as they're doing it.
And everybody's just looking at it while they're in the ring like.
People, no matter how you feel, no matter what you're going to say about anything like this, there's one thing that you got to know. It had to be stopped. You know why? Because it's a crime scene now.
Yeah.
That has to be taped off. Everything, it all has to be investigated.
Because we got to see, was this an accident? What happened? Are you guys culpable for it?
Exactly. You have to shut down the show. Then we go, God, it's like, then there's Trish Stratus.
Oh, God.
And then, this is when they said that, Vince had the whole mystery storyline with Linda. We talked to Linda, we talked to stuff. And then it's funny, Bill Simmons asked him, did anybody in your family had a problem with the storyline? He said,
oh, no. And then here comes Shane. I ain't like that shit.
He's like, yeah. All right. So then when he go back and tell
Vince, don't fuck with my mama.
And then when he go tell Vince, he's like, well, Shane's the more conservative one out of all of us. So, and I just said, it's fine. It's just, we're just characters. That was the thing. It's characters, right?
Everybody thinks I'm the real Mr. McMahon. And literally, he's like, but I'm not, though. And every single person, even the people who you expected to agree with him, was like, no, it's him, amped up a little bit.
Hulk Hogan said Derek's exactly the same person.
Absolutely. I was like, this is the first truth he's told in years.
So, Trish talks about, her time there and that she was a monster like that. And I'm just like, you can see the age. Trish still looks good. You can see the age on her face. But back then, Trish was it.
Yeah.
And then they all talked about the segment of the barking like a dog, right?
That was wild.
And then that was wild of him really getting into, as they were talking about his heel character. But the one thing that Trish said that she was not cool with was when they wanted her to make out with the woman on television.
Yeah.
Now, the way they edited it was that this was supposed to be Mickie James because she was doing that crazy lesbian stalker angle at that time. Mm-hmm. And then when she didn't want to do it, she lost her championship.
Yeah.
This is what it was. They really wanted her to make out with Tori Wilson. Mm-hmm. And because Billy and Chuck had a segment. And Billy and Chuck, for those who remember Billy and Chuck, they was, the borderline gay tag team of Billy Gunn and Chuck Palumbo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had a segment. And it was supposed to be a dance contest, I believe it was, or a bikini contest. And Trish Stratus was supposed to make out with Tori Wilson. So Trish said no, so they brought in Stacey Keebler. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't even think that her and Stacey during that segment, they ever kissed or anything like that. But that's what they want Trish to do. Trish didn't want to do it, and she lost her belt to Jazz. Mm-hmm. And when she lost the belt to Jazz, she was gone for about 30 days. That was the punishment. Mm. For not wanting to do that. But the way they cut it and edited it made it seem like it was Mickie James. Because that fit with that storyline that was going on. But that's not how it was happening.
It happened?
Yeah, like that. So since WWE's getting popular, he's trying new ventures that all fail. Restaurant,
literally everything.
Bodybuilding. This back in the 90s.
WBF.
That failed big time. Then
that failed because that was right on the heels of the steroid.
Yeah, and it just sucked.
Well, yeah.
The XFL.
Whoo!
All these things suck.
Yeah, y'all should stop that.
Also, this is when we're going into, and I forgot to write down the wrestler's name that Vince McMahon, his favorite wrestler was, and he modeled his character after.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah,
that too.
I would say that, but now, like I said, I'm blending episode 4 and 5 because when they go to episode 5, it's the family thing. Now we're talking about Shane, Linda, Steph, and also they did bring up Sable.
That was wild.
Now Sable, for those who remember her in the Attitude Era, she was the one, like she brought a little athleticism to him, but she was the hot thing. But they got rid of Sable, and Sable had brought up a $110 million sexual harassment lawsuit to the company, but then dropped it, came back in 2003, and just did the whole Trish storyline.
Yeah,
but with her. So when they asked him about the lawsuit, Vince don't remember the lawsuit.
Of course,
if somebody comes to you with $110 million lawsuit,
of course you don't remember the lawsuit.
But you're not gonna say nothing bad about Sable because you don't want to go to Suplex City.
You don't. I say because Brock Lesnar will come in there. He'll come in this interview right now.
This man threw the belt at you before, and he don't give a fuck.
He just disappears off the screen.
Yeah, so you don't want to upset your sexton buddy. So
you know what's wild? I always thought about that when that whole scandal happened. I was like, what if Brock Lesnar was just sitting in his house minding his business and it's just titties? And he like, whose titties are these? Now he in the middle of this. Which I don't think that's how it happened, but I just imagine, like, can you just scrolling on your phone, looking down over your glasses because Brock getting old. And he's just like, whose titties are these? It's horrible.
And I be feeling bad for Sable because Sable was low on money and she needed money. And she came back to work just to basically get, because all the shit that they made Sable do in 2003 was all lesbian shit. So
that's because you know how big corporations do. You know these small family businesses. Yeah. They know that if they drag this out long enough, you're gonna drop the lawsuit anyway because you can't afford to keep up with it.
Mm-hmm. So they had her tonguing McMahon, tonguing Tori, tonguing
girl.
Whoever they wanted to, and fight Stephanie McMahon, all that other bullshit. So then they go into Shane and Stephanie. Now Shane is obviously his son, and
I be feeling bad for Shane.
I do be feeling bad for little Here Come the Money. Shane been look up to his dad. Shane been doing referees and doing all stuff to get into the business, but Shane always wanted his dad's approval. Shane, I'm telling y'all, if y'all don't know Shane McMahon is an extreme daredevil.
He was out here. He was like, you want me to jump off the top of the building in Connecticut? Sure.
Shane was taking 50 to 75 foot drops on certain nights. They talked about the Kurt Angle belly to bellies at King of the Ring. Oh, that was wild. And how Shane just falling on his head. And how it just smack.
It took 3 times for him to go through the glass. Yeah. That was crazy.
All to fight for his dad's approval. Right? And it said it didn't happen until, and then Shane had left in 2009. Mm-hmm. Because it said that it was made, he made a power play towards Vince.
Okay.
And Vince wasn't having that. Even Paul Heyman brings up the thing where he says this is what a creative disagreement with Vince is like. When Shane had something he wanted to do, and Vince, they was eating lunch and Vince had a knife, he said, and he put it to his chest, he said, "You're going to have to stab me in my chest if you want this idea to go over, and if you don't stab me in the chest, then I already know that
I know you're not built for it." And I'm just like,
I know you're not built for it. And he says that if and if you are planning on buying me out, and if you don't get your way, be prepared to get rid of me like I would have got rid of my father. Or you could just say no.
No, it's fine. No is a full sentence.
It's all you could say was no. Shane did have some different ideas because at first, before Dana White, Shane was talking about getting the UFC.
And that is the thing. And the fact that he acknowledged it and still couldn't realize that you took that L because you could have been in early is crazy. And then to be like, oh, that's not our brand. He was getting his Tyler Perry on low key, like, what's low brow? Yeah. My man, do you know what business you in?
Shane McMahon had the idea for when they had bought everything to put ECW as like an indie internet show, and to sell it that way because it's a small brand, opposed to have what Vince did, the rebirth of ECW, which
was horrible.
And I'm just like, so I think Shane could have had some ideas that could have contributed, but it just wasn't happening that way
because he's not the favorite.
And I think that Vince looks at Triple H more of a son than he does Shane.
Here's the thing. I don't know if I think that. I think that he probably looks at Shane as a son, but I think that he looks at Shane as not as strong. I won't say weak. He does not see him as a formidable opponent.
Well, fair, because it was funny because when when Bill Simmons was asking him about Shane, even Tony Ash said, he said, Shane is a very nice guy.
He's nice.
And he said every time he comes around there, he is talking to everybody. He's making sure he relates to everybody. He's just a very nice guy. That ain't the guy.
That's not what you need in the wrestling business.
Stephanie's
you need Stephanie. She's more hard as nails. But she has to be. Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing. She might want to be more likable and want to relate more to the wrestlers and the fans. But as a woman in a male-dominated environment, you can't be anything else but a bitch.
There was things that they actually like. Is there any storyline that he made you do it? She said yes, but I
don't want to talk about it.
So
and Vince is honestly, yeah, because what the fuck, Vince?
Vince had no problem. Vince said,
he's like, hear this. She's gonna be pregnant.
So they're gonna do an incest storyline, which I heard this before, where it was Vince. There's gonna be a way that Vince impregnates Stephanie. Disgusting.
I wish I could see my face.
When Stephanie shot that all the way down, they said, "Well, we'll do Shane," and Shane will impregnate his sister. And it was like, the fuck are you?
Where is Linda? Linda, Lisa and Linda, please come over here and get your husband.
Triple H talks about when they were doing the whole storyline where she's supposed to get married to a talent named Tess.
Tess.
I was like, you could just say Tess.
Just say Tess.
Tess is gone. I'm just going to say Tess. And he Mickey'd her drink. Yeah, this happened. And then they don't get married. So they play some heels on TV, which got them closer. Which got them to eventually get married. And Vince was like kind of pushing it on, like you really should get with a guy. She wasn't allowed to date the talent.
And Shane was like, "Fuck no."
No.
Which is hilarious to me.
Absolutely not. But then, she goes and gets married to Triple H, and then Vince is like, "Well, we should have your wedding.
Why don't we do this as a pay-per-view?" He was trying to make her the OG Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. And she said, no. So he calls her selfish.
I was like, to call your daughter selfish because she does not want to have... Because people want to assume this is storyline.
Yeah.
It's already a storyline. And she's like, can I have one regular thing in my life?
Seriously.
No. I'm selfish.
Because you had Kevin Nash, you had The Undertaker, you had Shawn, you had other people at his wedding. Mm-hmm. That either wasn't there or wasn't character. You know what I'm saying? So then he books that they had a whole storyline. I remember the storyline, but back at Vengeance of 2003, Vince did a father-daughter street fight.
That was wild.
I guess to put a little whipping on her 6 days before a wedding, and Linda said, if
she is bruised or broken or looks beat up, I will divorce you
on the spot. Which, I mean, she did.
Stephanie,
anyway.
You should have fell into one of them elbows, girl. And saved your mother all this trouble.
So then we get to the final episode 6. Because I told you we did 4 and 5 together.
Is this the Chris Benoit one?
Yes.
Okay.
and then they had the whole limousine blowing up storyline. When that happened, I was working at Boston at the time when this happened. Okay, I was there, and he has a couple coworkers. Coworkers was coming up to me and my mother saying, "Did you hear that Vince died yesterday?" In this limo.
That was wild.
And I was just like,
they was calling the office.
Yeah, hell, they say even Trump called his office.
Is he dead?
Like, what happened? It exploded because they sold it like that. They put it on the news and stuff. Yeah. So it was like, yo, this really happened. And then real tragedy struck a week later.
And then he had to come back from the dead.
Chris Benoit passed away June 25th, 2007, and it was him, his wife Nancy Benoit, and his son Daniel. Let me tell you, that Raw that they showed, I still had it on my VHS because I recorded it.
Because it is scrubbed from the face of the earth.
When that happened, because I thought everybody was going to come out, they told, because at this time, Chris Benoit was a big star, for the company. And we haven't really lost, at this time, a main event talent.
Like, who was actively on the roster.
You know what I'm saying? At this time. I mean, unfortunately, things would happen. Like, we just lost Bray Wyatt, who was a top star active on the roster. But I'm just saying, but at that time, so they shut everything down. They didn't have nobody come up on stage and do all that kind of stuff like that. They had a show. Nobody came into the ring. They shut all the doors. But then, as the night was going on, we started getting details about what happened. Because everybody was like, was it a carbon monoxide poisoning?
Yeah.
Did somebody come in there just, it was a robbery going wrong and kill them all? And then, before Raw went off the air, it was like, this looks like a murder-suicide.
This is not what you know.
Exactly. This is not what you think it is. And when that news came out, it was the wrestling circle all over again about what's going on in wrestling.
Everything is
steroids,
circling
the
the
drugs,
drain.
and stuff like that. Now, this is when some people start talking about the side of the net. They bring on Chris Nowinski. Now, for those who don't know Chris Nowinski, he was a wrestler back in 2003.
He was the OG David Otunga.
Yeah. I have the DVD, and I saw it live. I was on pay-per-views like crazy back then. I saw when it actually happened, because before they even show, I was like, I know exactly when Chris Nowinski got injured. That's when Edge fell on his head. I remember that. When there was a double in the Royal Rumble, because he came out at number 3. No, I'm sorry, probably number 7 like that, because I can't really remember.
It was in the single digit numbers.
Yes, it was. Rey Mysterio comes from one side, Edge comes from the other side to do a double drop kick. Rey just gets there first and knocks Nowinski down, which Edge comes thigh, leg, and all right on his head.
Oh.
Yeah. So that got him a concussion. That ended his career.
Damn. So and this is the part that I was like, we definitely about to start talking out both sides of our mouth.
Yeah.
Because you can't convince me that this man gets concussed and then that ends his career, but the subsequent disease that he decided to go and study doesn't exist.
Because they looked at Chris as weak. Because once again, at that time, this is 2003 this would happen, but even in the 80s, there was none of that. If you didn't work, you get paid. That's just that old school mentality, unfortunately.
And so, that's okay. No, I'm not gonna say
and
what
once again, in 2007, no one even heard of CTE.
No.
Right. So it's like you bringing up this myth, and then also the boys probably looked at it as they said Benoit had CTE gives them an excuse for what he did, and it ain't necessarily giving them an excuse, but it's like the man is sick right now, and these are injuries that are happening in contact sports, football, hockey, rugby.
Even soccer, they were saying.
Yeah.
FIFA was fighting them.
And you see people like falling and colliding on their heads, and it's the damaging of the brain that is just like rotting away. And people really don't understand how much the brain controls the body.
Yes, and how much the damage to it can change your personality.
Yes.
That's why you see...
Junior Seho!
I was about to say, you see some of these athletes, they say they were the nicest guys, so great, and then after years of wear and tear... taking them hits, then their brain, their personalities change. Yeah. They're angry. They're just mad, and they can't seem to get a handle on it, and unfortunately take their life and shoot themselves in the chest, so their brain will be preserved.
Yeah.
But somehow, and that was the thing that bothered me. He's just like, listen, you can see the scans of these people's brains where you see the change, where you see the damage, and somehow it's just that's not a real thing, or that's not an excuse. And I'm not saying it's an excuse. It can still very well be the reason why it happened, and he's just a bad person. Mm-hmm. Two things can be true.
It's hard for people to wrap their brain around. And Stone Cold comes out, he was like, I'm not a CTE guy. I don't believe in it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but this thing is said, because I really think as an old school guy for himself, it's like you so stuck on protecting this business because it could really change it. Because Vince was just like, he called Chris and was like, all right, listen, you're just going around saying stuff. If you can prove it to me, if you can prove it to us what the CTE thing is, then I'll help fund it. So Chris proves it to him. So Vince's like, okay, we gotta change.
Well, we gotta change some stuff. And then Undertaker's pissed because he can't hit people in the head with a chair anymore.
He gets hit over. They take away unprotected chair shots. That's why you don't see no over. You shouldn't see AEW. You shouldn't see unprotected chair shots over the head. Mm-hmm. Or it's always chair shots over the back now. WWE has banned pile drivers.
Why they discourage Seth Rollins from doing the curb stomp stuff like that.
So some things have come back, but mostly they banned the pile driver. Mm-hmm. And there's certain moves that they have banned and that you can't do. Even when it comes to bleeding concussions, they stop the match and get the gloves out to check on these guys. Yeah. Does it mess with the momentum of the match? Yes.
Sometimes.
Edge and Finn Balor for WrestleMania, but they do that to help protect the wrestlers.
Because sometimes it's not even just you could get concussed, you could break your neck, Stone Cold, but also think about some of these guys, whether they have the wellness policy or not. Some of y'all still doing stuff. So what happens if one of y'all got hepatitis and starts bleeding in the ring?
Mm-hmm. Abdul the Butcher, shit like that. And then it goes into Undertaker talking about when he had his match at WrestleMania 30 with Brock Lesnar, and he got concussed. It was this is another don't piss me off moment. Yeah, he gets belly to belly on his head, and he gets slammed on the head on the outside. He don't even remember that match.
He doesn't remember the match at all. Now, and here comes Vincent.
So after the match, he passed out in the back. He had to rush him to the hospital. Him and Michelle McCool, and Vince left the show. Vince don't ever leave shows. Vince left the show to go to the hospital because
Undertaker's elderly self can't be getting concussed.
But then Vince says out his mouth that the reason the Undertaker could not remember what happened in that match, it was the trauma of him finding out that day that his streak was ending at WrestleMania. Really?
The trauma. The psychological trauma that y'all don't believe in.
This old school cat who is all about putting somebody over on the way out the door, or whatever the case may be, is that traumatized to the fact that he can't remember the match because his streak was ending at WrestleMania to Brock Lesnar. That's why he can't remember, not because the fact that the man was concussed. They asked Vince about retiring, and Vince was just like, when you retire, you're not growing. You're just going to go die. So
I have no respect for people that retire. Breaking news.
In breaking news, this
that was funny.
Had to retire because then that's when the allegations start hitting. So when the allegations hit, he's not in the documentary no more.
Mm-hmm, yeah, he can't say his interviews.
Yeah, and neither is any other family because right now you just can't incriminate yourself. You just got to like, you know what?
I mean, even though we've already.
Yeah, they did talk about the Wall Street Journal reporter talked about the tan salon incident from 2006 where the woman ran into a Papa John's crying saying that a man was trying to rape her, and no charges were made. In response to this, on Raw, he makes a segment with this guy, and Mickie James is yelling at this guy is trying to rape her, so she assault her.
And she's just standing there. They're just standing there looking at each other, and she's screaming. And I'm just like, why are you like this?
When I seen that, I was like, how many other storylines
have we witnessed?
That is pertaining to what happened to you in your life? Really?
Because you're not the character, Mr. McMahon.
Uh-huh. So, and then they did talk briefly about Ashley, but not enough, in my personal opinion. I think I wanted to know more about the Ashley Mazzaro situation. That we did talk about that, in full also on the podcast. You guys can check that out. And then the last half hour, some of that is talking about the Janelle Grant stuff that is still pending because right now he's under federal investigation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then her case is going to go back. So, yet the Vince McMahon story is not yet finished.
No, because they did talk about, but they did also talk about how Stephanie ended up stepping down, and people were trying to draw conclusions of Vince McMahon saying somebody close to him advised him to retire. He didn't want to step down, and then when he brought himself back before TKO made that power move, it was just like deuces. She left, because
she don't want. Didn't work nothing to do with her father.
The implication was that she must have been the person who advised him to step down. Yeah. And when he came back, she was just like, "No, thank you," which is fucking nuts.
I mean, now since he going down, now she came to Philly WrestleMania, and she been in the audience now in the Hall of Fame. So I'm like, because with Stephanie, she not gonna be there when Vince is there.
No, and also I feel like he's kind of, you made it so that she was the chief brand officer. Yeah. I don't think you want a McMahon right now as your chief brand officer. You know, the sins of the father. I just listen. I get it. Like, you don't want to deal with him, and you don't want to be around him, but it sucks because it's like, if this is all you know, if you really want to do this, it shouldn't have to be like that. And, you know, always trying to have the last word, trying to muscle your way back in. Mm-hmm. And then you come back in with the sole purpose of selling the company just to get pushed out again.
Yeah. No, it's
irony at its finest.
It is. But guys, that's where the 6-part thing was at. First of all, overall, I think if you're not a wrestling fan, I give this an A documentary. Mm-hmm. If you're not a wrestling fan. Now, for me, who's a wrestling fan who knows pretty much about this, when it comes to the information, I give it a C. Okay, but when it comes to how it was made, I think it was beautiful. He made a documentary. I do think you should go check this thing out. Both ways, like I said, but it does get times when it comes to the history of WWE. There are things in here that we did not really get into. We didn't get to every minute detail that I would have wanted to get into, but overall, I do think, like I said, it was a good watch. But the story for Vince McMahon is still pending.
Yeah, he's still out there.
And it's not, but it ain't looking good for Vince. And I'm telling you, Bruce Pritchard, he can talk to blue in his face about all the things and talk about how, because they asked him in the documentary about how do you think about it. He still felt it was a hit piece, and we all know the human side of Vince McMahon, who paid for his wife's cancer treatment, who they said wouldn't live past 4 years, and then that she's still living to this day. That's great. Vince has done some great things in his life.
Again, villains often don't have, people are not one-dimensional. Yeah. There will be times where even the most horrendous person has a moment that it's like, oh, so you're not like a completely horrible person. And they still are. Yeah. People they are multifaceted.
Exactly. And people don't understand that. And
Bruce Pritchard better chill before some shit come out about you, bro. You've been on the right hand for far too long that you come up nowhere. Mm-hmm.